racing.
Like, oh, you guys move it so often, that's such a pain. Well, actually, it's super easy. It gets easier and easier every single time you do it. Is that normal? I am ready to head north and gain some elevation and get out of the Texas heat for a little bit. Then you kind of have to keep that in mind when you're talking to people, because otherwise you can really misunderstand the way someone is expressing themselves. Good morning, YouTube. So we have a lot on our plate again today. I feel like I always say that. We are going to be packing up the RV, hooking it up, and heading to the in-laws to stay there for a little while. One, to do a dry run, again, to pull the RV, make sure everything's good to go, and then two, it's a lot more convenient to have our home with us. So that is the biggest thing. We also need to go and cancel our gym membership because we're not going to be here for at least 3 months and we're not going to be using it. So that's money that we can save. I also need to edit video footage. Must make time for that at some point. But right now I am having a smoothie. It's spinach and orange juice and a berry blend that we bought at Sam's Club, I think. All that said, Stuart is outside finishing up some last minute repairs on his truck, and while he's doing that, I'm gonna be in here getting everything settled so that we can hitch up and leave, which honestly is looking like it's gonna be a whole lot sooner than we thought, so that's pretty cool too. Anyway, welcome to this week's vlog, and I hope you guys enjoy.
Boogity, boogity, boogity. Let's go racing.
It is a humid, muggy, nasty day. Probably one of the stickiest days we've ever had packing up the RV. But packing it up really doesn't take long. And in fact, the more you do it, the quicker it goes. And that's something that Stuart and I have remarked on before. It's like people have RVs and then they go to full-time RV and then they park it somewhere and they never move. And it's just like, well, why don't you go and do things? And people say, well, it's because it's such a hassle to move the RV. Like, oh, you guys move it so often, that's such a pain. Well, actually, it's super easy. It gets easier and easier every single time you do it because you just find your rhythm. Weather conditions notwithstanding, of course. But here's the plan. We are headed to the in-laws, like I said, and I'm pulling our cargo trailer, our garage, because we're going to be leaving the cargo trailer and my truck at our in-laws while we are on the road. That way we're not having to worry about hauling around 2 trailers and 2 vehicles and dealing with twice the gas mileage and everything else, twice the wear and tear. We're just going to kind of let things settle there, and then whenever we come back, we'll pick everything up. We also decided to save money by not paying for our site at the RV park that we've been at while we're not there. Like, it doesn't make any sense. That's $400 a month that we can save and put towards traveling, which with gas prices right now, we are definitely going to need. So that's just a little bit of insight into what all we're doing, why we're doing it. It's crazy because we've been planning this summer for a long time, like since the earlier half of the semester, and now it's almost here, and we're within like weeks now of hitting the road. So it's really, really exciting stuff. It's also a little bit stressful, but it's mostly exciting.
The next is charge detection time.
That should be set at 3 minutes currently.
Yep.
All that is basically the battery has to essentially be charged, to a certain point for 3 minutes before it recognizes, where it's at. So
Okay.
3 minutes is where we generally leave it at.
Okay, and then
I'm forcing Stuart to take a break so that we can go eat some food because it's noon and neither of us have had anything to eat yet, but is that normal?
I don't know. The inverter freaks out or it gives you an alarm whenever you're turning it off.
Learn something new every day. All we have left to do now though is run the wiring for our outdoor outlet, what our shore power cable is going to hook up to, and then connect the solar panels. And that's it. That's so crazy. You guys, we're doing it. Like, we put this whole crazy thing together and it's working. I sound amazed, but I kind of half expected it to not go as smoothly as it's gone, but it's been okay. So I just had a thought that I want to share. I just got done doing some yoga, and yoga for me is all about slowing down and taking the time to check in with yourself and just kind of check in with your environment and take a pause. And every time that I do yoga, literally every single time, there's something that I notice throughout the course of my practice that makes me just pause and in an even deeper way appreciate the fact that I took the time to do this. And today I was in lizard pose, which just it's like a plank, and if you know yoga, you know. My face is pretty close to the ground at the edge of my mat, and I look down and I'm stretching and I see the tiniest little ant colony. I mean, these ants are the smallest, I guess you would probably call them sugar ants, but they were like a really light caramel color, super, super tiny, right at the edge of my mat, just going about their day, doing their thing. If I hadn't been doing yoga, hadn't been in lizard pose, hadn't been so close to the ground, I wouldn't have seen them. And I'm a nature girl. I love seeing that kind of thing. I love taking the time to pause and notice what's happening around me. And it was just a really cool experience and something that came out of me taking the time to do yoga this morning. So I just wanted to share that because I thought it was really, really cool.
Am I sweating or am I glowing? I am ready to head north and gain some elevation and get out of the Texas heat for a little bit. But our solar is working great, so that's a really awesome thing. And all this sunshine is definitely keeping everything powered up. So that's good too. But it is definitely warm. I realized that I haven't yet given like any kind of an update on the newest addition to the House family, who was born during the last vlog that I did. I finally got to meet him, and tiny humans are just incredible. Like, I don't think I know anybody who isn't just completely spellbound by them, and how could you not be? I mean, it's just crazy to think that we all start out that tiny, and he's really, really special. And it's been a long time since I've held a baby that tiny and that young, and it's been a really cool experience being around him and getting to be an aunt, and getting to watch Tyson and Austin, his older brother, interact, and Tyson's like waking up to the world, and it's a cool thing to get to watch and to get to be here for. I decided to close out this vlog outside instead of sitting in the kitchen because Stuart's entertaining Austin in there right now, so I left them to that. And I thought I'd come out here and talk about my weekly reflection. And really what I've been thinking a lot about this past week is just everybody's different communication styles. And more, the more often that I'm put in situations where there's misunderstandings and feelings get hurt, the more I become convinced that most of that is because of how differently we all communicate. Everybody has a different style, everybody has a different way of presenting and expressing themselves, and all of that comes from our pasts and how we were raised and how we were talked to. And it's not good, bad, or indifferent, it's just everybody's a little bit different, and there's different styles, and you kind of have to keep that in mind when you're talking to people, because otherwise you can really misunderstand the way someone is expressing themselves, and you might think that they're insulting you or not being sensitive to you. They might think that you are being abrasive or whatever. Imagine any scenario, when in reality it's none of those things. It's just differences in how people communicate. And I think being with family a whole bunch this past week and the weeks previous, communicating with a bunch of people from a bunch of different kinds of backgrounds, that has really hit home for me over and over and over again. And that's something that I'm going to be thinking about and trying to keep in the forefront a lot more, because I find that as I communicate with more and more people, it comes up more and more often. So that is my reflection. That is where I'm at right now, and I am surrounded by a gorgeous, gorgeous sunset. Let me pan and see if you guys can see it. And the sun is back there, but it looks like a ball of fire to me just below the horizon, but I don't think the camera is really picking it up. But all these thunderheads behind me, just these beautiful, I love nature. All right, guys, that's it. That's the end of this vlog. Thank you again so much for being here. I really, really appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next one.